Good afternoon. This is Sahara, and welcome to my observatory. Yes, I live in a castle way up high with a marvelous antique telescope. I look up to the skies to see what wonders are there for us all. There's always a story to be told, always a drama unfolding, always enlightenment around every corner. I want to look at some what would be considered nearly a perfect chart and nearly a perfect life. And you will see that even in situations and karma where the native knows untold blessings, there's still the challenges and lessons of this earth. It's not always a piece of cake. And even that you can have this poorest pauper in India who gets a crust or crumb and begs on the street, and they might be happier than this lady who became a fairy tale princess. Everybody wants that. Most of this activity of her film life in Hollywood happened in the first half of the century, like 1951 through 1954. She made one movie after another, and she won awards one after another. There was a time in Hollywood where the other movie queen of the time was Marilyn Monroe, and Grace Kelly actually got more fan mail and was more sought after as a great actress and an incredible magnetic personality. So how did she disappear from the screen? We had her for about 4 or 5 years and then she was gone. A handsome prince who had his own kingdom, his own castle, he saw her in films. He met her at a film festival and came to America, and he proposed to her and said, "Come with me. I'm a handsome prince," which he was, and come to the kingdom of Monaco, a very charming, small country, and he had a lovely castle. So, and from there, because of her station in life, she could not go back to what she loved the most was the theater. There is such a thing as exceeding your wildest dreams. And she was the most envied woman of the time. Let's take a look at her chart. In the perfect chart, we have Scorpio rising. Next, we have our Scorpio sun. And what do we know about Scorpios? Scorpios, you never see the surface. It's always hidden. They're really mysterious. And even nobody can understand them, not even the Scorpios. And they are usually either studying psychology or they're on a couch exploring their own inner world, which is very vast. A well-known astrologer once said to me, "They're so secretive and unemotionally available is because why are they like that? It is because they have been hurt before." Now, in reading a little about her life, she really didn't have too many disappointments, to tell you the truth. It's really kind of amazing. And I'll go over to the aspectarian and we can look at, I call her the queen of trines. A trine is a triangle angle like this. If you can follow the cursor, it's a triangle like this. And here's another one. That's a grand trine. It's like 2 grand trines. They're all over this chart. You're lucky if you have 1 grand trine in your chart. And we're talking tight orbs, not far away from each other and weak. The closer they are to each other, the tighter they are. And I want to show you her moon, which is in Pisces. Pisces loves illusion. It loves to create illusion. It lives in illusion. Um, Life is a grand play. Their inner world is immense. And that's what she got. She got something that average girl from Philadelphia isn't just going to see that quickly. Of course, her beauty was astounding. And there's reasons why. Pisces has beautiful eyes and quite an allure. They're of another world. This is Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. They say Neptune, as a planet, came by our solar system and was trapped by the sun's gravitation, and it never could break away to continue on its journey. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and our Pisces people always feel like they don't belong here. They're otherworldly. They're aloof and hard to reach. They live in their own world. They love to dance. And they love anything of illusion and beauty. They're also a sign of high spirituality. Neptune looks beyond the material to find something greater. So you have a Pisces moon. Interesting to note, the 5th house, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shows your children. And Princess Grace had 2 daughters that they just broke all the rules. She had a son, and he got to be prince. He could take over the kingdom. He was always groomed to take on this responsibility. And the Prince of Monaco was very serious about running his little kingdom correctly. Because in Europe, if you weren't a good monarch and if you didn't rule things well, they have ways to get rid of you, as the history of Europe goes. So the royalty has learned to shape up, and he is, and Prince Albert was very, very dedicated to taking over the rule of the little kingdom. But what did the princesses get to do? Their main job was just to be princesses. That's all. That was it. And what happens to the princesses where their only job is to sit in the corner and look pretty and be charming all the time? Well, a part of you starts to rebel in some way. And these young girls just were always, people were having to pay off people not to talk. They were all over the place, especially in Paris. Quite the reputation. And you'd hear about all kinds of misadventures by these children, which of course, children that have all the resources in the world, how are you going to discipline them? Grace was very loved in Monaco. The people loved her. She liked to work with, and this is Venus, goddess of beauty, is close to her ascendant, but it's kind of hanging out in the house of hidden things. The 12th house is the house of hidden things, things that you can't see. And so there was a part of her just quite simply hanging out. And I'll show you, if you want to find out something about the different people in your life, the 7th house, that's right here, 7th house, is ruled by Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in beauty-loving Libra, and so if this is the husband, where do you find the ruler of this chart of the husband role hiding out in the 12th house? These people hide out. You don't know what they're doing and where they are. They don't. They can't really express themselves well. And what went wrong with that marriage? While it was one of the first, it was the first wedding to ever be televised in the mid 50s. Um, the weddings of the royal families now are also televised, but this one was kind of off the charts as far as popularity, and because it just didn't happen in our world. And we had just come out of the Second World War, and in a way, everybody in the whole world needed a fairy book tale, an ending, happy ending, don't we all? The thing about this chart being a Scorpio, you never know about these people. They don't know themselves, and they're very secretive. I guarantee you, Grace was on a psychiatrist's house all the time. They're always delving deep into their own psyche. What you have here is it's Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, god of the underworld, and he rules everything below the surface. You're going to find people ruled by Pluto. They delve into psychology, mythology, every kind of occult study you possibly could uh, and fathom. And she probably did a little bit to the best of her ability, because in the end, her new station in life held her back more than ever. She might have left a little middle class home where she felt held back. She didn't want to go out and run track. Then she ends up in this little kingdom, and because of her station, she literally can't do anything. And before she was the princess of the world. One thing interesting is the ninth house rules things far away. It's ruled by Sagittarius. Sagittarius is always looking up. They're always looking up and out and over the hill to see if the grass is greener. Sagittarius, and this is the ninth house. This means high spiritual learning. It means things far away. And ninth house people like things far away. In one way or another, they can be a religious figure, a monk, that is something far away where your life is part of a inner world. But they really like psychology, and they like, I guess, anything that helps them grow and expand. Because it's a Sagittarius house. Sagittarius is a fire sign, and they're very expansive. They want the big picture, whether it's philosophy, learning, um, institutions of learning, and all of the above. They want to know and experience, and especially experience. Now, when you see the ruler of the ascendant and the sun in the ninth house, you're going to live in a foreign land. You're going to, you're not going to stay in your country of origin, especially when it's the ruler. You're going to be exposed to the world at large. And Grace Kelly had a whole kingdom. That's not doing too bad. Um, so this guarantees anytime if you have some things in the ninth house, if it's natal, if you're born with it, you're going to live and be associated with or marry someone from a foreign land. Sometimes you can stay in your country and marry somebody with a very strong ethnic roots, but usually you end up in the other country, or it becomes very important to you. And that is where you find the native of the ascendant. This is the ascendant. The three things that are the most important is the ascendant, which is Scorpio, a water sign, deep, mysterious. This is why she had the reputation of being the ice queen. But Hitchcock said he wasn't falling for it. He said, she might be cool on the outside, but she's a volcano inside, which is interesting because the studios wanted to keep her refined, virgin-like image nice and pure. However, she was very promiscuous. She's a Scorpio. I'm sorry, but Scorpios, oh, they're just all over the place. They're very often in places where they shouldn't be. Other people's husbands, wives, oh my goodness, they're notorious. And if you are going to be a double Scorpio, you are not ever meant to go live at a convent. Um, and then you have Pisces. Pisces just believes and lives and breathes the illusion. And the fifth house is the love house, the house of love. This is where it shows what your love life is going to be like. And that about says it all. Her behavior in Hollywood was out. She had affairs with all leading men, and she had the most exciting and handsome, debonair uh, leading men that you could want. And so that is kind of a quick overview. I'm going to tell you, I feel like the one thing you need to understand is the houses are sometimes more important than the planets. The houses are where you reside, and you don't have always something in every house. One house is always emphasized, and this is the first house. This tells you about your appearance. This is the cover of the book. However, you can't quite see what's inside the book, nor will you ever know. But this is the outside appearance, and you have, and she was a stunning, gorgeous beauty. That I'm sure that is because of Venus. So you have Venus anywhere near your ascendant or midheaven up here, you're going to have a lot of, oh gosh, glamour or beauty. Uh, and the first house is the me house. It's all about me. It's the house of Aries, new beginnings. These are the seasons of our lives, and this is the new beginning. You might want to say that they're kind of a new soul. They have to follow a path around the big clockwork of the cosmos. So uh, she could actually show a path towards uh, incarnations. It's all about me. The first house shows like Aries. That this is a child's first entrance into the world. And what does a child know? They just know it's time to play and it's all about me. Period. They're pure expression of energy. If you have a 2-year-old, you know that pure expression of energy. However, she was this ice queen, but it was here, and Robert Hitchcock could see it. When you have Mars close to the sun, and we're going to go over some other famous women's charts, and they've got either Mars or Venus next to their suns. This is going to give you a little volcano action. Mars is a god of war, and I'll tell you, Venus shows what you want. Okay, I want to be beautiful, says Venus in Libra. However, I'm going to stand back and be aloof because I'm hanging out in the 12th house. But she kind of got some of that back when she had the prince who, her husband, really, they had zero in common. Grace missed the theater and the sparkle of Hollywood, and the prince was in office running his little kingdom. So that's just not a good recipe for happiness. The only thing that Grace got to do was run a little school for the children of acting and dance and music. And this made the people of Monaco love her because she did give a little back to the children. But she had to do everything in a very refined, reserved way, and that got old. Her life in Hollywood was pretty fantastic. If it depends on what you like, there's so many stories of Marilyn Monroe having one lover bursting in and another lover's jumping out the window naked. I mean, those kind of things could kind of get old. But they sought this lifestyle. So you have Mars conjunct the Sun, and I'll tell you something interesting. She died at 52. They say, well, she had a stroke while driving a convertible and went over a 120-foot cliff and more or less died instantly. She was taken off life support the next day. But the thing is, if you have any Mars aspects to your sun, if you have active Mars aspects anywhere, Mars rules the head. Okay, that's a stroke. It rules blood. That's a blood clot or something wrong with the blood. And it's going to be effective in the head and blood. And it's close to the sun, so she had a stroke. And of course, she died from a blow to the head when she careened over the cliff. But she never knew what hit her. And they're interesting that she died young and beautiful because that is a gift in itself. This lady had when I get to the aspectarian, you're going to see how many trines that she had. The obvious ones are the Sun and Mars, trine Pluto. And you're going to see they're all in the same degree, just about. 19 is, let me get my pointer. 19 degrees, and 21. And that makes for this magnificent water grand trine. Mind you, there's not a lot of grounding here. You gotta have a mix of grounding elements, and there's no real there. There's a little Earth, but that's an outer planet. It doesn't really count. So you have all water. This is water, and that's it. If you have a chart that is not a good, it's overloaded with one type of element, you want to uh, blend in. Like, she needed to have lots of plants around her. She needed to wear certain colors, and meditate to be grounding, um, because it's just not balanced at all. But this is a grand trine. You're still wearing the crown, and the problem is she got it all too soon and too fast, and this happens. And the individual is knocked off center. They didn't have to really strive for it. It's just handed to them, and there's no balance, and you get um, disillusioned. When you hit the great pinnacle of life, you become disillusioned. More people that win lotteries, etc., kind of fail in life because it all happens so suddenly. They didn't even have to strive for it. It was more or less fell into their laps. And that's what happens. So you have to appreciate what you've got. And, that's that. So then I wanted to point out, her final years. If you die at 52, you never know the ravages of old age. You die young and beautiful. My mother's last entry in her diary was, the only way to avoid old age is to die young. And she died suddenly of a rare virus. That was so prophetic. Um, Die young. This was, I guess, that was Mom's plan on a higher level. So um, that was an amazing thing. So that is true, though. it maybe is not such a good thing to live to 120. That's always for the individual to decide. And she separated from the prince in kind of early on, about uh, 45, and went off to live in the prince's um, Paris apartment. However, they didn't get divorced. It was just too complicated being a royal princess. And, they had to think about kingdoms, heirs to the thrones. It just, all of a sudden, your life is not really yours anymore. So, but Dark Moon Lilith is new on the scene and is getting a lot of attention from astrologers. As we grow, more things come to play in our consciousness that weren't there 100 years ago. Nobody knew about Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. But as we grew, we had to grow into them like a child grows into new clothes. And each one of these that came along, we kind of started to be able to harness sea power. Plutonium is an explosive thing that came into the mid um, 20th century, and we had to learn how to handle that correctly, and that was a bumpy ride. And Uranus, and we'll talk a little bit about the mythology behind these planets. But right now we're going to look at Lilith. This is new on the scenes. We have several things that modern day astrologers get to include in their chart because we've expanded. Our consciousness expands. As it expands, we get more things to work with. Of course, I assume that we are in a higher grade of school than our great grandparents were. So you have the dark moon Lilith and Pluto in exact opposition. This is one of the few oppositions in the chart. Those are challenges. And if you want to, Lilith is our shadow side. This is where psychology comes to play, where we do things that we don't even know why we did them. This is kind of the bad girl. Lilith makes us hit the streets and put on the stilettos and become a wild child. And it's a defiant. It says, I don't care what you think of me, and I don't care about my reputation. I'm going to be defiant and do whatever I want to. I'm going to dye my hair purple or whatever I feel like doing. And that she did, living in gay Paris for almost 7 years. Her reputation was outrageous, just like it was in Hollywood, and people had to be paid off all the time. Princesses are not allowed to act like that, but she was defiant, said, I'm going to do whatever I want. So there. It's kind of the defiant goddess. There's the grand goddess principle, and then there's the defiant goddess. And this is really the women's lib movement on hyperdrive. It can get out of control. And it's not exactly Victorian. This is, quite frankly, the hooker who doesn't really care what you have to say, and far removed from the straight-laced persona that she tried to be. But this dark moon came out, and it's in the 3rd and 9th house. This is the way you think. So she probably was living the life of a paperback movie, and very unbecoming to her station, but in a way good for her because she did what she wanted to do. But because of all the alcohol, she couldn't go back to the theater, which she loved. Uh, she left the theater in her mid-20s in Hollywood, and now she's 52, still young and beautiful. But with a lifestyle like that, she wasn't able to pull off any monumental theatric performances. You can't. That's a very focused profession. It's, it is really harder than you can imagine. So I'm going to wrap this film up because it's drawing to a close. The observatory's closing for the night, and I the planets move it on to go below the sunset, and we can talk about these exciting personalities later on.